I've learned now to record it so that I have a backup. Is it possible as a co-host for you to put it on YouTube?
Somehow I'm not able to stream it, but I'm recording it as well. So I'll put it later then on YouTube.
Okay, Prabhu. Thank you.
Oh, there's...
Madhana Gopal Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Dineshana Prabhu. Can you hear us?
I did service there at the temple 1984 to 1986.
Oh, in Tobacco?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
When Vishnu Gada Prabhu was there.
Right.
Long time ago.
Nice. You should come and check it out now. I mean, we're building this brand new temple here.
I see. I'm excited.
Yeah, it's making a lot of progress. There's Mother Bhagavati here. We cannot hear you, though, Ma. Somehow we're not getting your voice.
Hare Krishna, I think she's not connected to the audio.
Yeah, it shows that her microphone is connected, but somehow...
Prabhu, are you able to do the YouTube? Because for me, it's saying that the streaming software is weak.
I don't have the option as a co-host to do that. I can only do it if I'm a host. That's fine. You know,
That's fine. We are going to record it. Yeah. It just comes 10 minutes after the whole, and
we'll put the YouTube later. See? Okay.
Hare Krishna, Prahlad, good to see you. Achyut and Arjun, put your video on beta. At least for the first 5 minutes, put your video on so all Prabhujis can see you. Eldoret, we have a very young group, Prabhuji.
Okay, so we're just waiting a few more minutes for the other devotees. Oh, Hare Krishna, Maharaj is here.
Hare Krishna.
Mother Bhagavati, can you try your audio one more time? Because I'm not hearing anything coming through. Okay. I think we'll have to address the audio issue at some point. Okay, here we go.
I think I got it this time.
It's good now. It's good now. It looks like you have two connections now, right?
Oh, I can. Well, no,
oh, it's
I
fine. It's fine. We can leave it as it is. We can leave it as it is. Yeah.
I didn't join. The other one wouldn't let me join on the iPad. I couldn't figure out the password.
No problem.
So I think it's just one. Okay, awesome.
Okay, perfect. So thank you all very much, dear devotees. Today is a very special day. We are in Eldoret today. Eldoret is a small town in Kenya. It's not even the third largest town in Kenya, but it's very, very significant because there's wonderful preaching being done there. Mother Mansi Ganga Mataji of Kenya has been doing preaching there in Kenya for decades and decades, and it is under her tutelage that I learned quite a bit. You know, I learned a little bit about Krishna consciousness back in the 90s when I started out. I'm very grateful, you know, to be serving in this way. Eldoret is also very significant because even though it's such a small town, Srila Prabhupada himself places divine lotus feet in Eldoret, and there's some wonderful pastimes there that took place. We have a nice congregation building up in Eldoret, and today we are gathered to celebrate the appearance of Srila Prabhupada, to glorify him and to appreciate him, and we are especially excited and ecstatic that we have some disciples of Srila Prabhupada joining us and to share, you know, their words and their experiences with us. So we have His Holiness Jayadvaita Swami Maharaj. Thank you, Maharaj, for joining us. He is broadcasting live from right here in New Jersey, in the ISKCON of New Jersey temple. Everybody knows Jayadvaita Swami Maharaj. We also have Mother Vegvati from Alachua, and we have Dina Sharna Prabhu from Alachua as well. And we are expecting a few other Prabhupada disciples who haven't quite shown up yet, but we can get started right now with the program, and then as they come in, we will introduce them as well. So thank you very much, Maharaj. I can pass it on to His Holiness Jayadvaita Swami Maharaj.
Me. And 15 minutes, is that what we have in mind?
Yeah, as much. That's about fine. Yes, Maharaj.
Okay. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Shaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesh Shunyavadi Pashtita Deshatarane Vancha Kolpatarubhyascha Kripasindho Pyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Shari Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Well, there are many ways to look upon Srila Prabhupada's contributions. I at one point suggested that the BBT, with its annual publication, could do books on a book about Prabhupada with a different theme every year. So Prabhupada as teacher, Prabhupada as philosopher, and Prabhupada as author, and so on. The Prabhupada's role as an author and publisher is on the top of my mind, mostly because I was just doing an interview with someone about BBT history. And so, given 15 minutes, I could say something about Srila Prabhupada's emphasis there. Prabhupada related that he'd been instructed personally by his Guru Maharaj, if you ever get money, print books. If you ever get money, print books. And so he said his godbrothers built temples and did that sort of thing, but that he himself was more focused on books. He said, I saw that my Guru Maharaj was, even if some ordinary member of the mission distributed a few copies of their magazine, then Guru Maharaj would say, "Oh, you are so nice." So he said, I always saw, where is book? I'm always giving that emphasis because he saw that he very much, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, gave emphasis to publications. So Prabhupada did that before he came to, even in his householder life, he started Back to Godhead, a fortnightly magazine with considerable difficulty. Getting paper from the government during the war was difficult. Everything in India in those days in regard to publishing was difficult. Typesetting, proofreading, printing, everything, distribution. But Prabhupada made the effort, and something was there. And then some friends suggested that magazines will be of temporary interest, but that books will last. And Prabhupada started giving attention to writing books. Especially his selection is most significant. That this Srimad Bhagavatam as his life's work, which is really the core text for the Gaudiya Vaishnavas, for the followers of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Srimad Bhagavatam is saram saram udaratam, the essence of the essence of spiritual understanding. And Prabhupada's building everything really on Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita as it is. These are his two core texts. And we see the Goswamis, they're essentially deriving everything from Srimad Bhagavatam. Nana Shastra Vicharana, they're considering many, many, many Vedic books of Vedic knowledge, but they keep coming back to Srimad Bhagavatam as being the supreme among all the Vedic literatures, the essence of the Vedic literature. And so everything proceeds from there. So Prabhupada is giving Srimad Bhagavatam up to his last day, practically, up to his last days. On his deathbed, he's translating Srimad Bhagavatam and speaking about Srimad Bhagavatam. And then Teachings of Lord Chaitanya, which was the first book that he published in America. Easy Journey to Other Planets, which he'd written and published in India. After publishing 3 volumes of Bhagavatam, and you know that story, how much difficulty. Then he comes to America with that as his real capital. Then when he wants to establish deity worship and sort of bring things to a higher standard, Nectar of Devotion comes out with so many the scientific principles for how to engage in devotional service. And Krishna book, because I don't know if I'll get to the 10th canto. And as history would have it, he didn't go beyond the 14th chapter, but he gave the whole Krishna book in summary from, 1970, thereabouts. Krishna's pastimes. And Nectar of Instruction, and Chaitanya Charitamrita, major publishing work. Srila Prabhupada said that this was his Guru Maharaj's favorite book. In his later years, if he got some time, he would read Chaitanya Charitamrita. The whole theology of Krishna consciousness, teachings of Krishna consciousness, all get assembled in Chaitanya Charitamrita by Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami. And there's Ishopanishad and some other books, teachings of Lord Kapil Dev, compiled from Srila Prabhupada's teachings, which he, at his request, so many books. And distributing those books. Those who were present during Srila Prabhupada's time know how much emphasis is not a good enough word, but how much focus he put on distributing books. So his Guru Maharaj had said, if you ever get money, print books. Prabhupada got money, he printed books. And as he said, it became the family business. You distribute knowledge and you get money at the same time. Everything on the basis of those books. In the Soviet Union, former Soviet Union, how everything grew from books. So Prabhupada said, I'll not die, I'll live forever in these books. Prabhupada had mentioned that in Srimad Bhagavatam, he mentioned Narad Muni, who has so kindly appeared in the pages of Srimad Bhagavatam. So in Srimad Bhagavatam, we associate with these great souls, Sukadeva Goswami, Narad Muni, And especially we associate with Srila Prabhupada, who's given us access to all of this. Practically in the West, we'd never even heard of Bhagavatam. Bhagavad Gita, yes, that was known. Bhagavatam, what is that? And Prabhupada makes that the central work and the central focus of his effort to give this Srimad Bhagavatam and so many other books. Our whole movement is based on books. It's not sentimental, Prabhupada said. We have so much philosophy. And he said at the same time, for those who are not philosophical, simply chant, dance, take prasadam. So everything is there. Prabhupada said for the big philosophers, like for the general public, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu chanted Hare Krishna and danced. But with Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, Prakashananda Saraswati, Rupa Goswami, with some select people, then philosophy, then discussion about these such topics. Otherwise, for the people in general, chanting, dancing, feasting, philosophy, with little philosophy and lots of chanting and dancing. But among the chanters and dancers, there will be those who are particularly interested in understanding the philosophy, and everyone should understand something. Prabhupada said, even if they touch the page, they'll benefit. Now in Africa, there are so many educated people that can understand the philosophy very nicely. University educated men, people, or the simple village people, chant Hare Krishna, take prasadam. So Prabhupada's given, as they say, something for everyone, full spectrum. From the simplest person can chant Hare Krishna and take prasadam, and the most intellectual person can also chant Hare Krishna and take prasadam, but have a full engagement with so many enlightening books. So Prabhupada is with us in all of these activities, the chanting, the dancing, the distribution of spiritual culture of Krishna consciousness. These are all gifts from Srila Prabhupada, about which I'll say no more right now because we've reached 15 minutes, and I'll hand the baton back. Thank you, Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Maharaj, for joining us and for emphasizing the Prabhupada's what was dear to Prabhupada's heart. So we are very fortunate. We have 4 other devotees who are also disciples of Srila Prabhupada with us. So we have Mother Vegavati, Dinasharana Prabhu, Bhuta Bhavana Prabhu, and Jarati Mataji. So I will call upon Mother Vegavati next to speak for a few minutes. Hare Krishna.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I didn't have a plan what to say, but as I was listening to Maharaj and looking at my bookshelf, I thought I could tell a little something. Like Prabhupada would say sometimes that if you want to know whether the pot of rice is cooked, you take a single grain, and then you can see if the grain is cooked, then the whole pot of rice is cooked. Of course, it's Ekadasi here, so I shouldn't be mentioning rice, but anyway, just I'm considering my life like one of those grains of rice, that what I was doing, how I came in touch with Prabhupada's movement. The first time I heard the chanting of Hare Krishna, it was in the rock musical Hair. There was a segment where actors dressed as devotees came on stage and chanted the Hare Krishna mantra. So it became a record that was played on the radio, and I would hear it and I liked it and I would sing along. This was 1970. I was in college, and then I went to a live stage performance of that musical. And during the scene where the actors get up out, I should say, during the scene where there's Hare Krishna chanters on the stage singing Hare Krishna, I saw people in the audience getting up and going on stage and singing. I thought, I can do that too. So I did. And after some time, I think somebody must have asked me to sit back down. And it was actually many years later when I learned that the other people getting up out of their seats and going on stage were actors. And it was part of the play. But I just say it to illustrate my spontaneous attraction for chanting Hare Krishna. I wanted to be with those people. So it was a couple of years later, and going through, as Bhagavad Gita describes, 4 kinds of pious men surrendered to Krishna, and one is the type who are people in distress. And I had become very much in that category. So then I met a person who was, he had been in the very first group waiting at the airport in San Francisco when Prabhupada came to San Francisco for the first time. And this particular person had never lived in the temple, but he brought many people to Krishna consciousness. Before me, he had brought a person who later became Tripurari Swami. And anyway, so he gave me Krishna book to read. He taught me how to offer my food. He had those first Bhagavatams, and so I was reading the Bhagavatam out of one of those brick-colored ones. And I thought I would read you one of the things that struck me when I was first reading the Bhagavatam. If you remember, those of you who are reading it, the very first thing before the first chapter is a very long introduction, which is a short sketch of the life of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And it ends with the Sikshastakam. So I had been reading, and it was so interesting. And then when I got to the Sikshastakam and I was reading it, never having heard it before, this second verse really touched my heart. I'll read the first 2 because I'm trying to remember what it was like, never having ever heard these before. So glory to the Sri Krishna Sankirtan, which cleanses the heart of all the dust accumulated for years and extinguishes the fire of conditional life, of repeated birth and death. This Sankirtan movement is the prime benediction for humanity at large because it spreads the rays of the benediction moon. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss, and it enables us to fully taste the nectar for which we are always anxious. And the second one, O my Lord, your holy name alone can render all benediction to living beings. And thus you have hundreds and millions of names like Krishna and Govinda. In these transcendental names, you have invested all your transcendental energies. There are not even hard and fast rules for chanting these names. Oh my Lord, out of kindness, you enable us to easily approach you by chanting your holy names. But I am so unfortunate that I have no attraction for them. And I remember when I first read that, I thought, oh my God, I was startled because he'd been glorifying the holy name. And I had already started chanting Hare Krishna regularly by the time I read this. And I was thinking, oh yes, I'm a devotee. And then when he said, I am so unfortunate that I have no attraction, I was just touched by the Lord's humility. And then the very next line, one should chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind. And I realized I had so much to learn, so much to learn. But this Bhagavatam, as Maharaj was saying, has so much been our shelter all these years. And Bhagavad Gita, I was also given at the same time to read. And I remember probably a couple months after I'd begun to chant regularly, I got a phone call from my father on my birthday. I had always been a very greedy young lady. And my father called me on my birthday and said, "What would you like?" And I couldn't think of anything I wanted. And he was really startled, and I guess I was too. But and then finally I said, "Oh, actually, there is something. If I send you a book, would you read it?" And he said, "What is the book?" And I said, "Bhagavad Gita." And he said, "Oh, my dear, I've read so many Bhagavad Gitas." Because he was educated, and like Maharaj was saying, there were so many Gitas around, but none of them were telling Krishna's message as it is. So I did send him the Bhagavad Gita, and years later when I visited, I found it kept nicely on his shelf. I hope he read some of it. But yeah, so Prabhupada's books, Prabhupada established so many temples, and as is, I guess it was an astrologer who said, or he can build a house in which the whole world could live. And so that's certainly come to pass, that we're speaking on this Zoom channel to devotees in Kenya from this very remote corner of the world, far from Lord Chaitanya's birthplace near Gainesville, Florida, in Alachua. But I thought of another book. One thing I do regularly during my lunch hour at work is I read Prabhupada Lilamrita. And I don't know whether all of you are familiar with it, but it was originally 6 volumes. Now it's not condensed, but reprinted as 2 volumes. But it's Prabhupada's, the first, I guess, authorized biography. It's available for free at vedabase.com. And you can, I just pull it up on my computer and read a little bit during lunchtime. But so that was written by Satsvarup Maharaj. And after he finished writing the Lilamrita, he also wrote some little poetry books, which are like essential oil is to, like a sandalwood tree, and then a little bottle of sandalwood oil. The poems condense what you have already learned in the biography. So I just wanted to read one of the childhood poems about Srila Prabhupada from this Remembering Srila Prabhupada book. This particular one is called Through His Eyes. So this is Prabhupada as a little boy. Through his eyes, as he cycles through Dalhousie Square, see Calcutta. The proud Britishers in carriages, water fountains playing in the green Maidan. Through his eyes, see his kind father, waking him for puris and kachoris, training him to play mridanga. His mother Rajani trying to tame him, trying to protect him with prayers and mantras. Through his eyes, see the black and white illustrations of Mahabharata. Sadhus come to his father's house. A Babaji comes chanting Harinam during the plague. He sees Radha Govinda every day, stands for hours beholding the Lord. He studies train schedules and fares to Vrindavan. In his heart is the Hare Krishna movement. Jai Srila Prabhupada.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mother Bhagavati, for sharing those wonderful, that wonderful poetry and your personal experiences. Now I'd like to call upon Dinasharana Prabhu. Dinasharana Prabhu, you can take a few minutes. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. All glories to all glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. All glories to our glorious ISKCON founder, Acharya Srila Prabhupada. I'd like to pick up where our Jai Advaita Swami left off or mentioned, I'm very fortunate to see him, although I wish I could see him. He's been a mentor for over 40 years, and I consider him a good friend and guide. He's always been a wonderful inspiration for me. So I met the devotees in 1976. You might say I was part of the last wave of Srila Prabhupada's disciples, the rear guard, if you will. And I met the devotees. There was one touring bus at the time. There were several touring buses dedicated to distributing Srila Prabhupada's books. So I met devotees on one of those buses in Florida. And I came with already some conviction that the Vedas contained absolute pure knowledge. I didn't come from a religious family. It was the first day I ever saw the devotees. I had that, and I was significantly disillusioned with material life. And I actually joined that day, and I moved in the next morning. And as I traveled with the devotees, the first few months, I was traveling on the buses for 6 months. And because I was, although somehow it was rather odd, deep in my heart, I felt completely convinced I was where I should be. And I felt, as I said to my father 3 weeks later, I said, whether you believe it or not, whether I believe it or not, Lord Krishna is God. It's just a matter of what we're going to do with that information. But at the same time, I carried a lot of, I think they're called misgivings because of my prior association. But as I began to read the Bhagavad Gita, I ran across the different verses, such as Mahatmanastam Amparta, Daivam Prakatam Ashrita, that the devotees of Lord Krishna are under the protection of the divine energy, and Satatam Kirtayantascha, I forget the rest of it, but how the pure devotees are fully engaged in hearing and chanting about Krishna, and glorifying him. And because they realize him to be the supreme absolute truth, Vasudevam Savam Iti, therefore they are so engaged. So when I looked and I heard about Srila Prabhupada, how he had spent his entire life, and how it was I was with his followers, dedicated to doing what they were doing, it created a tremendous credibility that this personality, Srila Prabhupada, was truly walking the talk. He was the real, living, pure devotee of Srila Prabhupada. So that greatly increased my confidence that, yes, I am in the right place, and this is connection to pure spiritual knowledge. So traveling on the buses was an interesting experience. It's very exciting. When I met the devotees, I suppose people would say I was introverted and shy, really not so good at going out and shaking hands and meeting people. But so I did the next best thing, was just to throw myself into doing whatever I possibly could to assist the devotees. I cooked for them, did their laundry, whatever I could to help. And I heard early on, as we all do, how, of course, Lord Krishna's mission in this world is to distribute religious principles and annihilate miscreants, etc. And Lord Chaitanya himself has ordered Yaradeki Krishna Upadesh. And Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Maharaj specifically requested our founder Acharya to teach Krishna consciousness in the English-speaking language. So putting all of that together, I felt I knew what I should do. I should just do whatever I could to be of service. And it was very exciting. We would hear regularly reports how Srila Prabhupada was so pleased by the book's distribution. And the different leaders of the book parties would visit the buses and share stories. The incredible dedication of the devotees in the buses. They would go out about 8:30, 9 o'clock in the morning, and they would return 8:30, 9 o'clock at night. And this was sometimes in the bitterest winter I joined at the end of January. We traveled up to Buffalo, New York. So cold. Walking from the bus to the showers, and, it's snow. We're walking in snow with our sandals and taking cold showers and such. But we were all so ecstatic. So I picked up from that experience very much, as Jayadvaita Swami shared with us, the family business, the confidential desire of the Vaishnava Acharyas, that as many people as possible get the opportunity to break free from the cycle of birth and death, dance with Krishna and Balaram. So many people every day taking birth, leaving this world, without any information about how they're not this body, how there's a spiritual world. Before I had met the devotees, I was interested in taking part in some kind of welfare work, as many teenagers are, especially of that time, how I could plug myself into something that would help others. So this was doing that on steroids. So I felt really happy about that. After 6 months, I joined a formal Bhakta program in New York, which is where I met His Holiness Jayadvaita Swami. And so I carried on from that point, just doing whatever I could. And I always saw whatever I did, whether it was dressing the deities or cooking or clean the temple so people could be attracted to hear about Krishna. Dress the deities so the devotees would be enlivened to go out and share Krishna consciousness. So I was fortunate to pick that up, and it carried on during the years. But I was reflecting, listening to the devotees so far, how at a certain point, some years, maybe 10 years into my connection to Srila Prabhupada and ISKCON, I heard an arrival address. Srila Prabhupada had arrived in Atlanta in 1975. And many book distributors had gathered there, and book distribution, that's it. That's the thing, that's the deal. That was the move. And one of the devotees, they asked what's sometimes called a loaded question. And they wanted to elicit from Srila Prabhupada a certain answer. So he asked the question, Srila Prabhupada, what will please you the most? And the expected answer hopefully would be distribute my books. But at least on that occasion, he replied that you love Krishna, that you love. And I have to say for myself, I realized that at least up to that point, I had not taken to heart, I felt, as much as I really should have, what our books were saying. What Srila Prabhupada was saying, there was a tendency sometimes amongst devotees that Srila Prabhupada is speaking about the Malechas and the Yavanas and the impersonalists and people who aren't Krishna consciousness. And that's people out there. But we are transcendental. We are Vaishnava. And I was a little bit caught up in that. I was reading one day, or over a number of days, and it just occurred to me, Srila Prabhupada is saying the goal of life is self-realization. The goal of life is God realization. And when I grew up, certain relatives would say there'll be no talk of God in this house. I had very little touch with religion before I met him. I had some faith in the Supreme Being. That's about it. Never really thought about God. And at that point in time, Krishna helped me to realize that I, myself, needed to do what the books were saying. It may sound a little odd. And I actually got out the dictionary and I read, well, what is God? And I got encyclopedias and I just tried to acquaint myself with what is the general conception of God. And of course, I read Srila Prabhupada's books, What is God? And the change in my inner solidarity was just astounding. I realized that I had been running on the steam of Srila Prabhupada's Krishna consciousness much more than my own. And I came to appreciate that, just as Lord Krishna says, that those who know me are fully engaged in my service. That was one of the primary reasons that Srila Prabhupada was able to do what he did. He was actually God realized. He was actually self-realized. And I appreciated at that time, I made a joke with some God brother that maybe we should have a badge that let's be who we're supposed to be so we can do what we're supposed to do. Because for some years, as some of us may know, there were various unfortunate things that went on in ISKCON, and I kind of watched the car crash as it happened. Srila Prabhupada advised that we have a Krishna conscious sandwich. We have a morning program and we have an evening program. And I don't want to find fault because I know how difficult it can be. You're the temple president, you're the temple manager, you're the husband, or whatever. And there's a need for money. So during the late 1980s, when many of the book distributors went from brahmachari life to grihastha life, the income to the temples greatly reduced. And there was a tendency, naturally, we have to pay the bills. And the evening program, at least in some temples, at least in the Northeast of the United States, was thrown out the window. And the sadhana, the actual core practices which Srila Prabhupada tells us are the essence of our strength, were diminished. So it's not surprising that all sorts of horrible catastrophes happened right around that time. So I realized that I was also, I needed to focus on that. I needed to become more truly Krishna conscious. So I think that that's a very important thing, that as much as busy, we have a checklist of things to do to spread Krishna consciousness. Srila Prabhupada always told us, I've read through every single one of his letters. I've listened to almost every single one of his lectures. And again, countless times, as we know, follow the basic sadhana. If you do that, our society will stay strong and we will stay strong. And I won't go into details, but I have experienced serious challenges in my life. And it is these instructions, it is Bhagavad Gita that has me sitting here today. And there's nothing better, I feel, that we can do for our society, along with expanding, is to be very careful to encourage those in our care and ourselves to maintain the basic principles. And then everything else will carry on. But where I'll leave it. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, Dinashana Prabhu. I'd like to request Bhuta Bhavana Prabhu to go next. Take a few minutes and Bhuta Bhavana Prabhu.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now. Thank you.
Okay. Jai, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. All glories to ISKCON. I was very much thinking about how before I joined Krishna consciousness almost 50 years ago in 1970. And I hadn't met Srila Prabhupada yet. And I joined in LA, and I went from LA to New York to join a Harlem Sankirtan party. And then Srila Prabhupada arrived like in about June, and he had about 8 days of initiations. And I was a little bit forlorn that there's so many devotees there, and I never really got a chance to really speak to Srila Prabhupada, nor did I even know what I would say if I was directly talking to him. But he left after a certain time at the end of June, I believe, and he went to Nairobi in Africa. And he was writing back letters, sending telegrams to Rupanuga Prabhu saying that this place, Nairobi, is like a heavenly planet. He really liked it there. And then he asked if there were any African American disciples that could come there and help in the preaching. So I was there along with a devotee named Hari Kripa Prabhu. And so Rupanuga Prabhu arranged for us to get tickets and to actually fly to Nairobi. And so in October of 1971, we arrived there and was picked up at the airport by Bhavananda, Brahmananda, and Chaivana Prabhu. And so we went to meet Srila Prabhupada, and as soon as we got there at the house that we were staying in, Prabhupada wanted us to see us up in his room upstairs, me and Hari Kripa. So we went up to see him, and Prabhupada said, first thing he said was, he had a big smile on his face, and he said, 400 years ago, your ancestors were taken away from here as slaves. He said, but just see, he made his eyes real big, but just see how you have returned as masters. So we were so much amazed at his statement that he was encouraging us to become Krishna conscious and remain in Krishna consciousness. And then he asked us to go downstairs and take prasad. So we were there with Srila Prabhupada for some time. I don't know if it was a week or a couple weeks, but the next day, Brahmananda gave me a basket. I was chanting outside. And there was this beautiful champak tree in the yard with very nice white and yellow flowers on it. And he gave me a basket with a needle and thread and said, can you make a garland for Srila Prabhupada? And I said, well, yeah, sure. I had never made a garland before, but I knew it was just a string with flowers on it. So I would pick the flowers off of the champak tree, put them together and put them in a basket and then make a garland for Srila Prabhupada every day because we'd go up in his room. We would have a Bhagavatam class in his room in the morning. At this particular time, though, we were also doing, Prabhupada was speaking with Shyama Sundar, and Shyama Sundar was asking him questions with regard to Socrates and other personalities. And this was the subject matter for the dialectical spiritualism book that Prabhupada produced. And so he would be answering questions that Shyama Sundar would be asking. So one day I said to Brahmananda, I said, Shyama Sundar is very intelligent that he's asking so many nice questions to Prabhupada. And Brahmananda said, yes, Shyama Sundar, he's a Rhodes Scholar, which I didn't quite know what that meant, but that it must have meant that someone was very intelligent. And so then we'd have these classes in Prabhupada's room every morning, and then we'd go for a morning walk. And I remember one time we were walking and Prabhupada there was a fence and there was a dog behind the fence, and the dog would be barking at us as we came by, and Prabhupada would take his cane and wave his cane at the dog. And then he would say, just see, just like the customs agents, why you have come here? What do you want? Why have you come here? So then we always would see Prabhupada interact even with living entities like this. And then we would go back to the temple, and then we had a big program. Actually, then I didn't believe it's the second day I was there. We went to the TV studio, and there was a program called Mambaleo. And so we all went, we had kirtan, and then we sat down on the floor, and Prabhupada was sitting in a chair, and he began to speak. We had a big photo of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and the Panchatattva. And so the announcer, he says, who is this person in the middle here? And Prabhupada said, this is Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He is God. And the man, he said, how can this be God? This is a picture of a man. And Prabhupada started yelling at him. Do you know who is God? He is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And he was so flabbergasted, he dropped his pencil. And he was like being blown away by Prabhupada's response. But we all were very happy to see Prabhupada defend the position of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And then Prabhupada began to speak very gently to him, like, well, he doesn't know very much, so he very much appreciated the fact that he could encourage him to accept that Lord Chaitanya was actually the Supreme Lord. So then there was this festival in Kenya. I think it was Kenyatta Day, and we were having a festival. Well, there was a festival. The city was having a festival, and what we did was we went down and we had kirtan, and all of a sudden, one of the sergeants came and told us to stop this. And Brahmananda, I was playing Mridanga, and Brahmananda Maharaj said, just keep playing. And so I kept playing and kept chanting. But then the gentleman said, I said to stop this. And then I said, Brahmananda again said, keep playing. So I kept playing. And then all of a sudden he yelled again, stop this. And he struck the Mridanga with his baton. And otherwise, if the Mridanga hadn't been reinforced with fiberglass strips, it might have broken. But then Brahmananda said, okay, stop. Prabhupada was still back at the temple, at the house where we were staying. So then later on, we went to, I believe it was called Kamakunji Park, and we took a big photo. We took a photo that was actually printed on the front of an album called Every Town and Village. It was a nice photo of all of us at the park, which was considered to be this park was considered to be the epicenter of the movement for independence for Kenya when they became independent from the British government. And so Prabhupada was still back at the temple. He didn't go to the park with us. But then one day we had to let Prabhupada go because he was going to go back to India. So we all saw him off, and he left and came back about 4 months later, about 2 or 3 months later, because we were having a big festival that Brahmananda had organized, Brahmananda Maharaj. And we had printed a Back to Godhead with many advertisements in it, and we all had put a written article in the Back to Godhead, all of us that were there. And what happened was that this Back to Godhead became, I believe it was the largest Back to Godhead we've ever printed. It was 108 pages. Brahmananda tried to do everything in a big way. And so when we printed this Back to Godhead, we printed 5,000 copies of it by D.L. Patel Press. And there was an article in there with Prabhupada. And also at that time at the park, Prabhupada had come back with Madhudvisa Swami. And so when they arrived, I was at the temple chanting, and the front door was locked in the building because we had gotten a different building by Mr. Damji Devji and Mr. G.N. Shaw. Both of them had participated in help us acquiring this building. And so I'm chanting in the temple, and all of a sudden I hear the doorbell ring. So I go to the door and I open the door, and it's Prabhupada, and he had come from India, and we didn't know that he was coming. And so he said, why no one came to collect us at the airport? And I said, well, we didn't know you were going to come, Prabhupada. We heard you weren't coming, or you weren't coming. You were, or you weren't going to come. So he said, where's Brahmananda? So I said, I went to get Brahmananda. And Brahmananda came. I said, Brahmananda, you won't believe it, but Srila Prabhupada's standing at the front door. And he said, no, you're kidding. He turned beet red. And I said, yeah, I'm not kidding. He's standing at the front door. He wants to see you. So Brahmananda got up from his desk and he went and offered his obeisances to Prabhupada. And Prabhupada asked him, why you didn't come to get us? And he said, well, we didn't know you were going to come because the phones were bad in Kenya at the time, and the phone service to India was also bad. And so sometimes the phones would disconnect and we'd have no more information coming through. So anyway, we did a big program at the park, at the stadium, where Prabhupada initiated the first African devotee by the name of Kandar Prakoti, who was formerly Dr. Roberts, and Prabhupada initiated him, and that was the beginning of our having initiated disciples in Kenya. And so what we did is that we had a big festival. The Indian community, the Gujarati community, they were very prominent in supporting Srila Prabhupada. They just did everything they did want. They did so much they wanted to help us with. And so we had a big festival at the stadium with prasadam that we were distributing. And Prabhupada was very pleased with the whole program there. And then we went to, we moved from that house where we were staying, and we went to Mr. Harji Bhai Patel's house. We stayed across the street at a little duplex that he had, that he owned. And Prabhupada would stay upstairs in his house. And he stayed there for like 3 days. And then one day, Brahmananda came down and said, Prabhupada says we should move because after 3 days, both guests and old fish begin to smell. And so at that time, he decided he was going to move. And he moved to Damji Devji's house, who was a jeweler, and had a jewelry shop in Nairobi. And it was the first time I saw Prabhupada's feet being bathed. Him and his family, they all bathed Srila Prabhupada's feet, and then distributed the water, sprinkled us all with the water from Prabhupada's feet. It's a very nice program. I just really love the Gujarati community there because they really seem to know how to treat a saintly person. And so Prabhupada was there for a little while, and I forget how long he stayed, but eventually he had to leave and went back to India. But it was very, very nice being there with him. One day he asked me, all the devotees went to the program at the stadium, and Brahmananda had me stay back with Srila Prabhupada. And so he came out of his room and said, where's Subha Vilas, who was giving him his massage? I said, well, he went to the program, Prabhupada, he's not here. He said, well, what about my massage? I said, well, he's not here. He said, well, can you do? And I said, well, if you tell me what to do, Srila Prabhupada. So he said, follow me, and I went with him, and he got his gumsha on and gave me some mustard oil and some sandalwood oil. And we sat down in the courtyard with a blanket, and I gave Prabhupada his massage, the only time I ever gave Prabhupada a massage, but it was very wonderful to remember all this time of how he gave me that mercy to be able to touch his body and to give him a nice massage. And so one day I was giving Prabhupada his prasadam. None of us really knew how to cook very well. So Hari Kripa Prabhu had made something and cooked in the kitchen, and I took Prabhupada his prasadam, and it was very simple. And he rang his bell and asked me to come back in, and he said, who has cooked? And I said, Hari Kripa Prabhu. He said, tell him to come here. So he went, and Hari Kripa came into his room, and then he came out and he was laughing, and I said, so what are you laughing about? And he said, well, Prabhupada, Prabhupada said, why is it that you have cooked eggplant, boiled eggplant with no spices? He said, who has taught you to cook like this? And he said, well, I don't know, Prabhupada. I didn't know how to cook very good. So Prabhupada said, he said, you should learn how to cook properly. So the next day, Prabhupada went into the kitchen, and we all stood around as he cooked what was called, he called it scorch and stick eggplant and potatoes, where he would cook the potatoes and eggplant, and it would be sticking to the bottom of the pot, and he would scrape it. And so he cooked that. He cooked the sabji. He cooked chapatis and rice. And then we all had that meal that Prabhupada had cooked, and it was like one of the best meals I'd ever had, a prasadam. And and then what happened is that we waited for Srila Prabhupada to finish his prasadam, and then we distributed his remnants. We always had a nice time of enjoying the remnants of Prabhupada's plate. It was very wonderful just to eat prasadam that offered at Prabhupada's plate that he had all the food and the nice prasadam that he had left from his plate. And there are a lot of other stories, but it was so very nice just to be there with Prabhupada. And later on, he left, and we just had a wonderful time while he was there. And one other thing is that we had a feast that we prepared for Bhaktisiddhanta's appearance day. And Prabhupada, he had saw that there was Brahmananda had hired this Brahmin cook to cook halava, and he had told him that Prabhupada likes it with a lot of ghee. In Kenya, we could go to the store and buy cans of ghee. As the Indian community was there, we always could just get cans of ghee from the store already prepared. And so he had poured so much ghee on this halava that it was like 4 inches, 4 inches of ghee floating over the top of the halava. And Prabhupada had seen it and said, "This is not halava." And so what happened is that it was Bhaktisiddhanta's appearance day. And so what we did is that we had the prasadam offered and then gave Prabhupada, I was giving Prabhupada his plate. And as I gave him his plate, I was getting ready to walk out as we were all standing around, and Prabhupada said, "No, sit down, sit and take here." So we sat, and as Prabhupada was eating his prasadam, taking his prasadam, and it was so grave. It was so great. He was so grave that it almost felt like the whole room became full of silence. No one spoke, and we just sat and watched Prabhupada as he had us sitting there while we were all taking prasadam with him. But there you could hear a pin drop, and he was just so grave that it was almost like the whole room was flooded with this sense of gravity from Srila Prabhupada's appreciation of his spiritual master. And then finally he said, "Okay," and he said, "You can all go now." So we all got up and left. But it was a very wonderful experience, just because Prabhupada usually would take his prasadam by himself, or we'd bring his plate in the room and he would take, and then we'd go pick up his plate. But this time he told us to sit and just sit there and have prasadam with him. So there's so many times that we had experiences like that while we were in Nairobi, and we traveled to different places. I think we went to Nakuru one time, and Prabhupada was there. We make so many life members, so many wonderful experiences. So there's a lot of other things, but I don't want to take all the time. But it was just wonderful just having Srila Prabhupada, being there with Srila Prabhupada in Africa. And Nairobi was the first African center. So it was very, very much appreciated by the devotees and the people in general that we came there and started the Krishna consciousness movement, following Prabhupada's instructions there in Nairobi. It was a very wonderful time. So Jai, all glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Jai, Shri Prabhupada ki jai. Thank you so much, Bhutavana Prabhu, for taking us back in time, back to Nairobi in Prabhupada's Leelas. Thank you so much. So sweet.
Hare Krishna, Jai.
Krishna. We have with us Mandakini Mataji joining from France. So Mandakini Mataji, thank you so much for joining. Kindly, if you give us a few minutes of your time, and we'd like to hear from you as well. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, dear devotee. I'm so happy to be with you to talk about Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much. So I won't be able to stay very long, but it's just such a pleasure to be with you. Om Adganati Milandasya Gyanam Janam Sadakaya Shaksul militam dena tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutali Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namini Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Prachalini Nirvisesa Shunyavadi Pashatya Deshatarine. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So, dear devotees, celebrating Srila Prabhupada Appearance Day, or this Appearance Day, is very, very special. And all of us, his direct disciple or his grandchildren, it's actually a time of joy and a time of grief, because we can feel an increasing separation in these special auspicious days. But Srila Prabhupada was telling us when he was on the planet, those of you who have seen Yadu Baba's beautiful movie, you remember Prabhupada had his heart attack in America. And he told the devotees were very frightened because he was going to go to Vrindavan to recover. And Prabhupada told them, I've already been given notice. And he says, but do not fear, we will never be separated. You will be chanting Hare Krishna here, and I will be chanting Hare Krishna there. And the sound vibration is going to circulate all over the universe. And in that sound vibration, we will be together. So now, as we see Krishna consciousness progressing all over the world, we see as Srila Prabhupada disciple, we're actually in the queue to go to our next destination. And we see Srila Prabhupada through all of you, the new generation. And he's so happy, he's witnessing your spiritual life. He's actually looking at this movement. He's very, very enlivened. And he's preparing great adventures to every one of you. So I was trying to remember which story I should share with you. I'm going to share a couple of stories. You already know my story, so I will share a story since the wonderful Prabhu who was speaking before talked about cooking. I'm going to tell you a story about cooking. It was in 77, and Prabhupada had two devotees, two ladies cooking for him. One was named Palika, and the other was Shruti Rupa. And Shruti Rupa is actually telling us that Leela, she was cooking for Srila Prabhupada, and she had a big problem. When Srila Prabhupada had finished taking prasadam, she would take the remnants out of this room. And every time it was kind of hellish for her, because devotees used to come and they would be very, very fussy. They would say, I want that samosa, I want that rasgulla, and they were giving her a big headache. So one time, Srila Prabhupada noticed she didn't feel very peaceful, and he asked her, what's happening? So she told him, Srila Prabhupada, every time I come with your remnants devotees, are just coming over me, and they just give me a big headache. They are so choosy, and so Prabhupada had a big smile, and he said, I will tell you what to do. You just take all the remnants, and you just mix them together. And you know, you put the rasgulla with the sabji, with the kerala, and you do like that, and you will tell me what happened. So she did what Srila Prabhupada said. She started to mix everything, and then she came out of the door. And the devotees were really surprised. And she said, please come and take some prasadam. And they just started, you know, okay, they put their hands, but they were very peaceful and everything was very quiet. So next time she brought prasadam to Srila Prabhupada, he asked her, so what happened? And she said, oh, Prabhupada, it went so well. It went so well. And, you know, she explained what happened. Then Srila Prabhupada said, he laughed, and he said, that's actually the way we were doing with my Guru Maharaj remnants. So it was very bona fide. It was coming, you know, from what the cooks of His Divine Grace, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, were doing when the remnants came out and how devotees were respecting prasadam. So I'm going to tell you another story I really loved. That was related by Shruti Kirti Prabhu. Srila Prabhupada was in Vrindavan. And in Vrindavan, he had a lot of guests, he had a lot of God brothers coming to visit him. And one of the God brothers was very, very annoying. He would always talk about the past. And he would actually bother Srila Prabhupada, criticizing things that happened in the past. So Prabhupada told Shruti Kirti, next time he comes, you don't let him in. So Shruti Kirti said, yes, Srila Prabhupada. Then the God brother came. Let's call him Krishna Das. I don't remember his name. He says, okay, I'm going to Srila Prabhupada's room. And Shruti Kirti says, no, it's not possible. Srila Prabhupada is not receiving anybody. And the God brother says, yes, but for me, the door is always open. You know, and he pushed Shruti Kirti and he came in. And Prabhupada took some time for Prabhupada to come out of his shower, his bath. He came in and he saw his God brother and he welcomed him very, very friendly, in a friendly way. He put his arms like that and he said, oh, my dear God brother, I'm so happy to see you. And the God brother said, but you know what happened? Your disciple, he just forbade me to come. He didn't want me to see you. And Prabhupada looked at his God brother and said, oh, you know, my disciple, they are so untrained. And he embraced him. And at the same time, his head was actually in the neck of his God brother. He looked at Shruti Kirti and he did something like that with his eye, you know. It was like a sign of connivance. And Shruti Kirti Prabhu felt completely in ecstasy. He felt in ecstasy because he was taken into the intimacy of his beloved spiritual master. And during that lila, that lila showed actually the way Srila Prabhupada knew how to act perfectly in a situation like that, because everybody was happy. The God brother was happy, and Shruti Kirti was happy. So it's one of the favored memory of Shruti Kirti. So I wanted to tell you a last one. Let me think. Yes. It's actually a story of separation. Maybe I told it before in Nairobi, but it's a cooking story of separation. I think it was 74, Prabhupada came to England and he stayed in Bhaktivedanta Manor. And by Krishna's grace, I got the opportunity to cook for him. I never did that before, but in London we had so many wonderful Indian ladies coming, and they taught me many preparations. One day I heard Srila Prabhupada said, I want to go to the spiritual sky to eat loglu and kachoris. So I asked the ladies to teach me. And there was one lady from Calcutta. She taught me how to do loglu and kachoris. So when the time came to cook for Srila Prabhupada, Shruti Kirti Prabhu told me how to use the brass steam cooker. And he told me the basic preparation. And I was allowed to add any other preparation. So every day I was cooking the basic preparation, namely dal, rice, 2 sabjis, 1 dry and 1 wet sabji, 1 Kerala bitter melon preparation, chapatis. These were the basic. And then I could add anything I wanted. So every day I was adding something special I learned. And one day I made kachoris. I made some peas kachoris. And then I brought the plate of kachoris in Srila Prabhupada's room on the first floor at Bhaktivedanta Manor. When I brought the plate in, Srila Prabhupada's eyes became very big. He said, oh, Mandakini, you made kachoris? And I said, yes, Srila Prabhupada, I tried. And in his eyes, I could see the little boy he was in the streets of Calcutta when he was going to the kachori sellers and begging some kachoris and putting them in his pocket. And so it was a very wonderful moment. But I was a little surprised because usually the plates, it was not so much left. So Prabhupada seemed to like the prasadam, but he did not make any comments. So I was wondering, does Srila Prabhupada like this prasadam or not? You know? But in his way, he was increasing the love of his disciple by causing a little bit of spiritual anxiety regarding the fact was, is my service accepted? Is my service pleasing to my beloved spiritual master? Then time came for Srila Prabhupada after a full month to leave England. He was going to take the plane next morning. And I was reflecting, how are we going to be able to tolerate that? We had a full day with Srila Prabhupada. You know, from the time we woke up, our consciousness was Prabhupada consciousness. First thing we could do was going to the morning walk in the fields near Bhaktivedanta Manor. And so many wonderful things happened in the walk. Sometimes Prabhupada was chanting, sometimes he was discussing philosophy, sometimes he was arguing with some devotees, playing the part of the Mayavadi or the part of the devotees, and so on. After it was time for class, and for those like me who were cooking for him, it was a total absorption in trying to make something healthy and delicious. Then the day went on. Prabhupada was receiving guests in his beautiful room. In the evening, he had darshan, and he would put, devotees would put a white bed sheet over the carpet, and we would come in, and it was very informal. We could ask all questions. One time, one devotee asked, Srila Prabhupada, when we dream of Krishna or the spiritual master, is it real or is it our imagination? And that time, Srila Prabhupada in that room said, this is real when you dream of the spiritual master in separation. This is real. So it was very, very ecstatic. That night where Srila Prabhupada was going to depart next day, Shruti came with a big list, and he told me, Mandakini, Srila Prabhupada wants you to make this, that, and so on. And I was so surprised because it was Srila Prabhupada's answer to my question. Does he like the prasadam? He had actually written all the preparation he wanted, the special preparations I'd been making for the whole month. It was so much to do, so many preparations. So that was Prabhupada's kind of cunning way to say, I loved this prasadam. I became very excited. It was already quite late in the evening. I called my friends, and we started to try to do everything Srila Prabhupada wanted. He wanted some red plum chutney that in ISKCON we call Radha red. And we had no plum.
Can you hear me?
So we went.
Can we, if you can wrap it up in a minute or so, we have other speakers.
Sorry.
Oh, if you could kindly wrap it up in a minute or so, we have.
Okay. So Srila Prabhupada, I will not finish this pastime, but just to tell you that Srila Prabhupada increased the service and the love of his disciple. He was very expert in increasing the desire of the disciple to serve and increasing that loving relationship. Haribol, dear Prabhu, thank you very much.
So much.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Thank you, Mandakini Mataji, for those sweet pastimes. I would like to request Mother Jarati Mataji, if you could kindly turn on your camera and speak for a few minutes.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes. Thank you.
What I want to say a prayer. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Tinamine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Prasachari Satarine. Today, I don't feel competent of saying what Srila Prabhupada is, because I would like to just pray to Srila Prabhupada to say what he has given me has been no effort could buy this, and he just gave it out free, like Lord Chaitanya. And he said, oh, come and get the holy name for free, buy the holy name for free. So this is how I feel about Srila Prabhupada, that he came, and I want to thank Srila Prabhupada, wonderful Srila Prabhupada, like Krishna is so wonderful. He just gave us this holy name for free. and we had been able to take this up is our fortune. Of course, once time I heard Srila Prabhupada's lecture, and he was mentioning that we don't own anything, and I'm thinking so many ways that, oh, this is mine, this is mine. This was my always idea, that I have this, I have that. But in the lecture, Srila Prabhupada, he said, oh, man, he builds a roof on an empty space and says, I am the proprietor. So I thought, oh, so this is how we become proprietor of everything, but it's actually, we are not really the proprietor. His lecture actually woke my inside to tell me this, that I can't just build a roof and say this is all mine. Everything belongs to Krishna. So this lecture actually took me on my Sankirtan one day, and I was asked that I cannot distribute here these books. And then the police officer was saying that you cannot do this here. This is not owned by the Hare Krishna. And I looked up in the sky and I said, oh, well, there is no roof over this place where I am. So it doesn't belong to anybody. It belongs to everyone. It's Krishna's. And so by Krishna's mercy, I was able to remember the lecture, Srila Prabhupada, and I was able to actually say that this place doesn't belong to anyone, and let the police let me continue distributing. And so that's one thing I want to thank you, Srila Prabhupada, today. I don't have so many wonderful stories, but if I say like how I joined, I don't want to feel like I'm just glorifying myself, but it was Srila Prabhupada who came on the order of his spiritual master, and he took his spiritual master's orders so serious that I hope that I can also take Srila Prabhupada's orders serious like that, and be able to give love of Krishna to everyone. And I really appreciate that of Srila Prabhupada, because I don't really know any austerity, and Srila Prabhupada made this possible for me to be able to come to the temple where I could actually be with his disciples and be devotee. This is a great occupation, I would say, that I wouldn't even know how and what I would do throughout my life, having this human birth. But Srila Prabhupada, thank you for changing everything and giving me the real service occupation to you and to help my soul. I cannot appreciate enough, because I feel that I would be just rotting in this material world. So I want to thank Srila Prabhupada for that, organizing the holy name, the Harinams. And I would like to say that how I joined was that I heard the Harinam in London, and I was just attracted by this Harinam, that how these Western devotees was chanting Hare Krishna, and the love that they had. Being not so philosophical, I was always thinking that these kind of things just came from the spiritual world. So I was actually just waiting for them. The whole Harinam, I stayed for like 6 hours sitting with them while they chanted. And they actually asked me, well, if I would like to go to the temple. So I thought, oh, yes, I'm not able to speak English at this time. So Srila Prabhupada, so I went with them to the temple, and they were actually telling me that Srila Prabhupada is coming. And I was like, wow, this is something that they have something coming. What coming, I don't know. So I went along, and Srila Prabhupada actually gave me so much mercy that Hamsadutta Prabhu even came and said, oh, would you like to see the Swami, Srila Prabhupada? And I said, oh, sure, I would like to go, but I don't speak English. But my mission was, before seeing the Harinam, was I was looking actually to find out who is God. And because in my family, we were doing puja, but not really knowing who's God. And because I don't like austerity, I thought, oh, well, God can tell me whether we should fast or not. So, but when I saw Srila Prabhupada, that when Hamsadutta Prabhu brought me up, and I was able to speak in Hindi, and I directly asked him that if he was God, because he was so effulgent that like I'd never seen anything, any personality of that, and it almost made me feel like he was God. So I had to ask him, and he just pointed at Lord Chaitanya and said, this is Lord Chaitanya's movement, and Lord Chaitanya is Krishna, and Krishna is God. So I was very fortunate to have that association, and blessings. And this is all I can say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jayati Mataji. Thank you, dear devotees. So we'll be going on for a little bit longer. We're doing a special celebration. So I'd like to request now Her Grace Mansi Ganga Mataji to speak a few words as well.
Sorry, Madan Gopal?
Yes.
Are you there?
Yeah, we can.
Jashit. So what I'm saying, I thought I saw His Holiness Jayadvaita Maharaj leave, and then I'm seeing his name. Is he there?
Yes, it appears to be. Maharaj is still here. Yes.
Oh. First, I want to really thank Maharaj to be with us. Maharaj, so patiently you have stayed with us. However, because you're there, Maharaj, I would like you to, the devotees who left, and there's still devotees who are there, since you're a book person, Lavanga, I think you know him from Nairobi. He came with Science of Self-Realization. Priya Govinda is still there. An African who came with the Coming Back he found in a church. Mana Shiksha, his father is a big person in the church, but he came through Ishopanishad. Rachel came with through Bhagavad Gita, and our Eldoret group Maharaj, Benson, Dan, David, George, and Christopher. 3 of them, Benson, Dan, and David, came with perfect question, perfect answer. George with Beyond Birth and Death, and Christopher with Bhagavad Gita. And a very special person we have who's not been to the temple, who's not associated with devotees, is Kiprotich. He's actually an Eldoretian, but he works, he's an economist working in Nairobi. And he just got this book, Chant and Be Happy. and he's chanting and he's reading Bhagavad Gita. That also Govinda had to send him a PDF. So I thought Maharaj would be happy that, like he said, the educated Maharaj, these days, most of the Africans are coming through with books, Maharaj. So by your mercy, by Srila Prabhupada's mercy. Now there's somebody who actually attended Srila Prabhupada's class in Nairobi. And Maharaj, you also know him, Pundrik Das from Kisumu. But he didn't want to speak, but I thought you should know that he's still doing very active service. And this Eldoret Center also started because Path Prabhu, who's here, who's actually the pioneer in Eldoret, originally from Orissa. His first book also was Perfect Question, Perfect Answer. I couldn't believe how many Eldoret people are from Perfect Question, Perfect Answer. Although his beginning was the Rath Yatra because he's an Orissan. And Pundrik Prabhu had told Path after he was managing Kisumu for 4 years, please go and start in Eldoret. So he's the one who's pioneered, and Pundrik Prabhu who... I would like to read an offering, which is actually, I read how many years, I think 30 years back. I normally don't write offering, but somehow Madan Gopal said, I said, no, I'm not going to speak in front of Maharaj for sure. But when I found this offering, I thought, Maharaj, maybe I can show off a bit. At one time, maybe I was more together than what I am today. Dear Srila Prabhupada, your Vyas Puja is an occasion so perfect. To glorify you, it is difficult to find words so perfect. You left the shores of India with the message of Lord Chaitanya so perfect, so the ignorant, foolish can become so perfect. We were helplessly wandering in the dark forest of ignorance, not so perfect. By your compassion and mercy so you picked us the road back to Godhead so perfect. Our future was frightening. You made us fearless by giving us Krishna conscious so perfect. You revealed to us Bhagavad Gita as it is, a message so perfect. Follow Guru, Sadhu and Shastra and instruction so perfect. To remember Krishna at all times, you have given us service so perfect. By deity worship, you're converting us from impersonalists to personalists, engagement so perfect. Simple and sublime, chanting, dancing and feasting, a tapasya so perfect. You not only teach us to live so perfect, how to leave this body is also your teaching so perfect. For the whole world to learn about Krishna, you set up a movement so perfect. You gave to me and you gave to one and all a gift of ISKCON so perfect. If we can all remember the ocean of your mercy so perfect, you showered on all fallen souls for their lives to perfect. We will never leave the shelter of your ISKCON so perfect. On this very auspicious day, we pray to you, please keep us at your lotus feet so perfect. Please remove our anarthas which are not so perfect. Please guide us back to Godhead, which is also perfect. Jai Srila Prabhupada. I don't know when I wrote this, I can't remember, but somehow I'm happy that I could repeat it after so many years. Thank you. Over. I think Srila is still there. I think she should get a chance to speak now.
Yes, Srila Mataji, please go ahead.
Hare Krishna. So I will read my offering if that's okay.
Yes, please go ahead. Yes, thank you.
So since the lockdown, I have been very fortunate that Srila Prabhupada from the temple has been staying with me, and I've had this opportunity to serve him on a daily basis. So Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prashaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namine Namaste Saraswati Deva Gauravani Pracharya Nirvasesha Sunyavadi Pasyati Deshatari. Through the kind and undeserved mercy of Pradyumna Prabhu and Nimai Mataji, Srila Prabhupada has been staying with me since the lockdown. And I just wanted to share some of my experiences and realizations since his stay with me. It honestly has been transformative and adventurous, to say the least. I feel like all my spiritual desires are coming true, and all my spiritual challenges are being washed away little by little. Things that seemed impossible or aspirations that I had even given up on started materializing, like waking up really early to chant and read. I always had the desire to read with my son Gopal, and now we're reading together first thing in the morning, at least 3 to 4 times a week. For me, nothing compares to reading and chanting first thing in the morning. And I used to so also easily miss chanting Gayatri and not really think about it twice. But all these little things just seem to be falling into place. I've always wanted to be in a steady and committed reading group, and I've found that reading group. I have found association of devotees on a personal level who are much, much senior to me, and that has been very powerful. And also with yourself, Manasi Ganga, it's like we have reconnected on a service level again, not that we were ever disconnected. So here in the UK and in the West, we have the 2 biggest attractions for children. That's Disney World and chocolate factories. And I feel the past 5 months for Srila Prabhupada has been like a visit to a transcendental spiritual chocolate factory and Disney World every other day. This has been one adventure after another. Seemingly simple, offering him Guru Puja and making his garland, but it just brings immense joy to my heart. The funny thing is though, and this is where Srila Prabhupada gets very personal. Initially, when I used to offer him Guru Puja, I felt like he was just telling me, what are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing with your life? You should be preaching. You should be preaching. And so initially I would avoid eye contact with him while offering him Aarti or while making any offerings. Anyways, that did lead to starting the Facebook discussions and interviews. Also, I feel like Srila Prabhupada really wanted me to be downright honest with him. Like it was not just a question of singing the Guru Puja song with him, for him, but rather, what does each line mean to me? What does it mean to me that my only wish is to have my consciousness purified from the words emanating from his lotus mouth? How much of this am I actually and truly desiring in my heart? The spiritual master is a bona fide mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And it's like I've been forced to sit down and contemplate over this and to actually think deeply about this. I keep asking the head pujari on updates for the temple reopening because I have no idea what life is going to look like without you being here with me in your deity form, Srila Prabhupada. However, I know that the best of you is in your books, and hence I pray to you with all my heart that I can keep my chanting and reading strong, and I know then everything is going to be fine. Please bless, help me and guide me with this Facebook preaching and giving classes. As unfortunate as this is, online is the way forward and there is immense opportunities for preaching online. Also, I'd like to take this opportunity to beg for forgiveness for offenses that I have knowingly and unknowingly committed. It is very easy to get familiar, maybe just treating you like a family member or sometimes even less. But you've been so merciful and you have not demanded anything for yourself. And again, my absolute indebtedness to Pradyumna Prabhu and his wife, Nimai Mataji. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, Srila Mataji. So next I'd like to request Ravi Prabhu, followed by Priya Govinda Prabhu.
Oh,
There you go. Mansiganga Mataji, you wanted to mention something?
is
Hare
Ravi there?
Krishna. Yeah, Hare Krishna. I think since so many other want to speak, let me give them a chance. I'll come on some other time. Hello?
Hello? Yes.
I think
Ravi,
there are many people.
Ravi, just 2 lines, short and sweet.
That's my problem. I don't want to stop talking, so let's give me time some other time. It won't finish in 2 lines.
You could. A summary. You're good in English.
Okay, fine. Then let's do. So I just wanted to. Yesterday, Kritika Mataji was saying how she's not so much familiar with ISKCON and all those things, and how she was not so much, was it close to ISKCON in terms of she's kind of new to it. So I want to just relate to one of my experiences about Prabhupada. When I was coming to the temple initially, I used to enter the temple, never pay obeisances to Prabhupada, and even when I went in front of Krishna, just stand up and, say namaste. That's because those were early days for me. Not to forget that I'm a Raghuvanshi. Raghuvanshi means children of Ram, and children of Ram are, of course, blessed, and they're so ego-minded and all that. That's a Luhana. So one day, as I walked to just say namaste to Krishna, one devotee was in the corner, and he said to me, Ravi, why do you not pay obeisances to Prabhupada? You are coming here, taking shelter of what he founded, and why do you not pay obeisances to him? So I just kept quiet, because obviously he was talking sense, and I just kept quiet. So thereafter, whenever I used to come into the temple, I used to first look around for this devotee to make sure that I pay my obeisances, and make sure that if he's around, he sees that I am doing that. So that's the way it started. So I initially started just paying my obeisances to a Prabhupada because it was the done thing, or rather it was the thing not to be caught not doing. So over a period of time, I did it just like a routine thing, only to find in due time, really, now I feel there's a connection. There's not just the ritual of bowing down to him, but there is the feeling that somehow there is a connection. So the lesson from this is bow down to Prabhupada. Just begin there, for especially new devotees who may feel shy or wonder what it's all about, but that is really, really the beginning. Everything else will just follow through. But the first one is to bow down to Prabhupada, and in due course you will develop a feeling. There will be a metamorphosis. There will be a change. Just like the tadpole turns into a frog, our heart, our thinking, our approach will change from being neophytes to being a devotee. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, Prabhu. So we'll have Priya Govinda Prabhu, followed by Rachel. Priya Govinda Prabhu, please go ahead. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna Nama Vishnu Parya Krishna Staya Buli. Srimati Vedanta Amiti Nami. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharini Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Deshacharini. My dearest and most beloved Srila Prabhupada, please accept my humble obeisances at the dust of your lotus feet. On this occasion of your 124th Vyas Puja, all glories unto you for delivering me from the miseries of this material world. Thank you for securing my future in this movement, oblivious to the fact that the world is now struggling with corona pandemic, which no other pandemic has ever befallen the whole planet before. This excruciating suffering has bedeviled this world, and it's painful to see that we can no longer participate freely in book distribution or harinam to relieve the conditioned souls who are in distress. His divine grace, you had foretold that in this Kali Yuga all these calamities shall surely happen. Through your wonderful books, due to the ignorant nature of the conditioned soul, who always think that he is the enjoyer. By your mercy, we have come to understand that due to man's animalistic behaviors, the Mother Nature is responding furiously through these calamities. Our advanced material knowledge cannot save us from these miseries. The chanting of the holy name has made us stronger, and by chanting the holy name, we have overcome the fear. You showed us how to practice austerity and detachment in order to elevate ourselves to the highest spiritual understanding. We have seen lately when this calamity struck, many people retreated to their homes and abandoned all their materialistic activities due to panic. But your devotees have no reason to worry, as you gave us the remedy. I sometimes suffer due to lack of association from your devotees. This corona pandemic can shut down temples, but Lord Krishna is already converting our homes into temples. I'm eternally grateful to you, Srila Prabhupada, because you gave us your transcendental books, lectures, and your Lilamrita, which we can learn through your example. I beg your mercy to propel this movement to the future generation and serve you submissively. I'm also so grateful and fortunate also to hear Prabhupada's pastimes from his sincere devotees who have stood firm in propagating the mission of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. You are eternal servant in Krishna. Priya Govinda Das. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much, Priya Govinda Prabhu, for the
Hare Krishna.
health offering. I'd like to request Rachel. Rachel, go ahead.
Hare Krishna. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishaya Bhutai Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namini Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharini Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashtatya Shatarini. Dear Srila Prabhupada, on this most auspicious occasion of your Vyas Puja, I would like to give an offering of gratitude to you. Thank you so much, Srila Prabhupada. Thank you for being so kind to me and so many conditioned souls that by your causeless mercy, you freely distributed the highest in all the cosmos, Krishna consciousness. Thank you for connecting us to the Parampara. I feel so fortunate, especially knowing that I do not deserve so much mercy. Thank you. Thank you for spending sleepless nights at an advanced age so that an insignificant person like myself can get to associate with you today through your most wonderful Bhaktivedanta purports. Thank you for your transcendental Vaikuntha voice that was recorded by your disciples and which removes all anxiety and provides understanding for your books. Thank you for giving me the chance to directly associate with devotees on a daily basis, to take darshan of their Lordship Sri Sri Radha Banki Bihari, and to live in their shelter. I cannot thank you enough, but I pray that you can help me to make proper use of all your mercy and to advance in spiritual life. I pray that if there is even a pinch of sincerity in me, may it never leave, and may I always be in the association of devotees and remain in the shelter of the movement which you established. Thank you so much, Srila Prabhupada. Your most insignificant servant of your servants, Rachel. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Thank you very much, Rachel. I'd like to ask Manashiksha Prabhu. Manashiksha Prabhu. Manashiksha.
Hare Krishna. Begin by offering my respectful obeisances to His Divine Graces, Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. For me personally, I believe the first time I came across devotees was through my friends in university when I came to Nairobi. I was around second year. It didn't really make sense because Kenya is majorly a Christian country, so this Krishna consciousness is majorly a new movement. But then you never really know what you're missing. By studying more of Srila Prabhupada's books, you come to realize that actually everyone thinks they're the smartest person around, that we know everything that we possibly need to know. But once, believe my life turned around when I met Srila Prabhupada through the books. I might have visited the temple a couple times, so even sometimes still with devotees. But for me, the meeting I've listened to devotees narrate how they associated with Srila Prabhupada personally. But for me, the association that I have rather had and still have with him is through the books. So I come to learn that there is actually so much that I don't know. For example, he explains of the fact that we are under so much, so deep, some very serious conditioning that is keeping us tied to this material without much of our knowledge, because most humanity, most of us actually are in ignorance, deep ignorance. But then, by the mercy of Srila Prabhupada, I have not only learned this, but I've also accepted that I have to take up to devotional service for me to get, or rather to have a chance to come out of this material world, this material suffering and condition. So he uses very strong words to explain, and explains this message of Krishna consciousness very clearly. He explains to us that for us to engage in devotional service, then it's a declaration against the kind of conditioning that we are. He also goes ahead to assure us that Krishna will always be with us. He doesn't take credit for anything that he does. He actually lives whatever he taught. To the end, nothing I've seen that contradicts this. These are actually what keeps me going every day when I come in contact with Srila Prabhupada. So I'm really grateful for his appearance, and I would like to pray for his mercy that we can continue serving, or rather, we can continue making some progress here and there as we try to achieve this mission of Srila Prabhupada.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Manashiksha Prabhu. I'd like to request Partha Prema Prabhu. Partha Prema Prabhu can go next.
Hare Krishna. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Tinamine Namaste Saraswata Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desatarini. Today, on the 124th Vyas Puja celebration, I am so grateful today. It is a very remarkable Vyas Puja glorification in Eldoret. We have able to get the chance, the glorification by the senior devotee, the Prabhupada devotee. Especially thanks Jadita Maharaj. I met also in Nairobi this year in January. I'm so grateful, also so grateful. Also all the devotees of the Prabhupada devotees. We are just one few words I'm telling. Prabhupada make a wonderful society. So every person can stay here and he can relate himself to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Those we have the scriptures along in the millions of years before. We have the temples, we are going there, but we don't have the right knowledge, the right path, how we supposed to be worship and how we connected to with God. This is the Prabhupada shows not only India, but all over the world. He is giving this by his mercy out of a kindness. He is transcendent, his transcendental message. He delivered millions of people and sent back to Godhead. On this Vyas Puja ceremony, I offer my respectful obeisances to Prabhupada and his all the senior disciples to shower our blessings so that we can go to the right path. Hare Krishna. Hare Bol.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, Partha Prem Prabhu. I'd like to request next Kirtika Mataji. Kirtika Mataji has been coordinating all these daily Eldoret events. Oh, actually, I'm not sure if Kirtika Mataji might be available right now. Having a hard time getting through.
I'm around, Prabhu.
Okay. Yes, go ahead, Mataji. Oh, Kirtika Mataji, would like to say? No? Okay.
Check Soni Mataji if she would like to speak something. Then Kushbu has to speak. And if Kiprotich is still there, he should also be.
As well.
Okay, so maybe till
Prabhuji,
Soni
Vivek
and
Prabhuji wanted, sorry, Vivek Prabhuji wanted to say something. I think there was an order. Vivek Prabhuji wanted to say something.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Vivek can wait a little, right? Vivek, you don't mind, yeah? Vivek?
Yeah, no, Mataji, after everybody has finished, I'll wait for my turn because I'm the junior most. So let me wait.
No.
I just raised my hand so that you give me a chance at least, Madan Gopal.
No, you'll get. We'll wait for you. Just keep.
Mine is not a glorification, it's just realization since last 2 days. So I'll share my realization and experience.
Then you just share it now, before we get on to somebody else. Just share it quickly,
okay,
2 seconds.
Okay, yeah, just 1 minute I'll take. It's like yesterday I saw that video, and after seeing that video, there were some heart-touching moments, like when he was almost in his last stage of body. I don't say soul departures, but body departure. He was still talking and preaching and doing those things. So that touched me a lot. And someone who has done a lot for our society. So as Hindus or as Sanatan Dharma or as ISKCON society, we should really do a lot for him. And I feel so personally, whatever I can do, I'd like to do. Then second, today's realization, I do some Sudarshan Kriya in evening. And, when I was doing it, after that Soham, I don't know how many of the people have done or they know. It's like a breathing technique and breathing exercise. So I was doing it, and at the end of that exercise, you just lay down. You are in your thoughts. You don't feel anything, and that's when I felt It's too big thing I'm saying, but Srila Prabhupada was there. He was there in my thoughts. Nothing else, just him. And I don't know what he blessed me and what I will be doing in future, but he gave me something. And I was like, somebody is having fits. That's when you go in deep meditation, you feel like your body is shaking, and all that happens to me. So at that time, before he came to my thoughts, there was nothing much happening to my body. But when he came, it was just shaking completely, and I was feeling like fits, and that was dangerous for me. But I am feeling really happy and blessed with that. And just one last thing I would like to say, that people say a lot of things, and there are a lot of more experienced people who shared food with him, who got blessings from him. I'm just 2 days old in this journey, I would say, because I came to know about him since yesterday only, that connection which Ravi Prabhuji was also saying. So what I feel that he is Krishna himself, because he said that, in one of his there's a lot of preachings he did, and one of the preachings which he says, you are mine and I am Krishna's, therefore you are also Krishna's. So that is one I will follow from today. And just last shloka, I would like to say that when I feel that he is Krishna himself, he is nothing but, Krishna sent someone to this earth who can give us this enlightenment before Krishna comes. That's what I feel today. And just a shloka which says about it in Gita also, which is 6.42. Athva yoginame vipule bhavati dhimatam etadvi durlabh taram loke janma yadishram. Which means he takes birth in a family of transcendentalists who are surely great in wisdom. Certainly such a birth is rare in this world. So he was born to a family, Srila Prabhupada was born to a family who was already devotees of Krishna. So that's what my realizations in the last 2 days. Hare Krishna, Hare Bol.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. So we can request Kush. We have some devotees on the list. We have Kushbu, we have Kiprotich. So Kushbu, go ahead.
Kiprotich. Kiprotich is still there.
Yeah.
Ask him, because I'm surprised he's still there. Normally he doesn't stay so late. Kushbu is with us, don't worry. I think she...
Sure. Yeah. Kiprotich, go ahead. Yes.
Hare Krishna. For me, I came into Krishna consciousness through a book. A book was written "Chant and Be Happy," and I was given that book by children in Kenyatta Street, Nairobi, and that book really inspired me. And today, listening to the disciples who first and benefited from Srila Prabhupada, it is really inspiring. The stories they have given are really inspiring. And Mansi Ganga has requested me to read a message that I wrote her about Srila Prabhupada, and I will read it. I wrote, Hare Krishna, Srila Prabhupada indeed did a great job spreading Krishna consciousness around the world. So many people are getting saving grace out of his effort to spread the word of God worldwide. I therefore thank Krishna consciousness for making me. I am in the process of self-realization, and the moment I read that book, it said that Hare Krishna. Hare means the energy of the Lord, and Krishna is the word of God that means all attractive. I'm very grateful for that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kiprotich. So we have Kushbu can speak, and I think Prahlad also wanted to speak as well.
Hare Krishna. My realization is that it's amazing how Srila Prabhupada's books have gotten the attention of millions of people, irrespective of their religions and their race. I really loved how he was doing service until his last moments. Now that is true love for Krishna. We are forever indebted to him. If it weren't for him and this movement, I honestly don't know where we would be. That's it. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much, Kushbu. We have a request from Prahlad also. Go ahead, Prahlad.
Okay, yes, thank you for giving me the time. Basically, I'm just going to say a few words that I am happy on what Srila Prabhupada started, this whole movement. Otherwise, without him, we wouldn't have these branches in Kenya that I'm so happy to be a part of. Like some of my friends, sometimes they just tell me like, oh, you're so lucky, you are born here, like you have started from basics. So I told them, yeah, I'm happy that I've also started from the basics, the fundamentals of ISKCON, so that I can spend the rest of my life, going deeper and deeper into this philosophy that we know and practice right now. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much, Prahlad. I wanted to read out something from one of our attendees who wants to remain anonymous. So this devotee says, first, I used to feel that there is no hope for us as we haven't seen him and we haven't had association with devotees who had seen him. But my realization is that he is with you always. You just have to reach out to him. I feel that he personally is with all of us. So that's basically it. Thank you. This is from a devotee who's one of our attendees here, but didn't want to personally speak it. So, Hare Krishna. Anybody else would like to make a homage offering to Srila Prabhupada? Mansi Ganga Mataji, do you have any other names, recommendations?
Not really. I'm just thinking about you. I think we'll all vote that you have to come and give a whole thing to us, and plus your other class, because some wanted only to hear you, but we are fortunate that you got His Holiness Jayadvaita Maharaj and all Srila Prabhupada's disciples. So you will have to give us time where you will speak on Srila Prabhupada. Is that okay?
Sure, that's fine. We'll do it some other time because it's already 10 o'clock, past 10 o'clock in Nairobi, in Kenya. So
yeah. Thank you so thank you so much, for being the MC, the host, and bearing with us. And thank everyone who has taken their time and shared and been with us. So Krishna willing, we meet again. So Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhyo cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namo. But you can do quick Hare Krishna and we call it a day now. Haribo.
Hare Krishna. Okay.
Is it there?
Who is muted? Yeah.
Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna,
Krishna
Hare
Krishna, Hare
Hare
Hare,
Rama, Hare Rama, Rama
Hare
Rama,
Rama, Rama Hare Hare.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.
All the
Oh my
awesome
God,
devotee ki jai.
Grateful that Rachna
Rachna
Mata
is
is
still
there.
there. Oh my God.
Yes, I'm very much there. And I just want to say Prabhupada is just cosmic consciousness for us. He's in totality. That's about all. And he has joined all of us, from different parts of the globe. And I'm sure there must be aliens listening out, not only from planet Earth, from other planets also. So thankful to all of you here. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Oh, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
You are really
Hare
addicted to Krishna consciousness more than any one of us. Haribo.
No. Oh,
At least she's addicted to the Eldoret group, and I'm grateful.
Haribo.
Thank you, Masika Mataji, and thank you, dear devotees. Thank you, Maharaj, staying with us the whole time, and thank you all for joining. Hare Krishna. Shri Prabhupada ki.
Haribo. Thank you. Haribo.